Pause a little bit and then start. Well, hello, folks. Welcome to the second session of DXC Tech Thursday with a focus on our DXC Invitational InsurTech Challenge. Today, we'll be talking with MapCite, a winner of our first DXC Invitational event run in Australia. I'm your host, Phil Korecki, Chief Technologist for Insurance with DXC here in America. And with me today are Faisal Siddiqui of DXC. Faisal?
Thanks, Phil. Faisal Siddiqui here, Chief Technologist for Innovation and Ecosystem Building. And I'm partnering with Phil on our exciting InsurTech challenge that we call Invitational.
And then with us, too, and very excited to have them, are Ian Haynes with MapCite, their CEO. Ian, sir?
Hi. As Phil just said, CEO, founder of MapCite. We specialize in insurance payments and banking technology, specializing in spatial.
Ian, thank you for participating. Also for MapCite is Adam Stevens. Now, let me see if I can get this one straight. Chief Location Data Officer of MapCite. Adam?
Okay. Yes, thanks, Phil. Yeah, that's me, co-founder with Ian as well. And as we say, one of the best things about being a co-founder is you get to make your own job title, but more nominally and more usually described as business development director.
Good roles, all three of them to have. So today we're going to touch more on our DXC Invitational and how the InsurTech trend is really impacting the insurance industry. We've seen a revelation with a number of companies coming into play with unique and new solution sets addressing areas that insurance is not covered or not covered well. And it's represented itself in a lot of startups, the InsurTechs and FinTechs. And, what we've seen from the DXC perspective is a significant embracing of this. We were recently at the InsurTech Connect conference in Vegas, over 6,000 attendees for what is effectively a 2.5-day social event. And they were mostly representative of InsurTechs and FinTechs and the insurance companies who are going to consume them. The MetLifes, the AXAs, Aons, AIGs of the world have a very deep and structured interest in the InsurTechs and where this is heading and how they can embrace it. And one of the reasons is a shift in how the industry looks at itself. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the shift from insurance to insurance and how that changes things. We've also called it, though, the inside out versus outside in shift. The inside out is the older insure model. Outside in, which has been driving a lot of business thinking and more recently, is looking at your customer, their needs, their lifestyles, and what they're doing and how they're interacting with you, and taking those outside elements and bringing them into the business to make sure that it works. And it's kind of that context that's driving this interest in newer technology and newer solution sets, and companies like MapCite and DXC's desire to partner with those emerging technologies and these new thinkers in the business. So we recently had done an invitational event in Australia that we called Springboard. Faisal, can you give me some insight as to what we did in Springboard, what brought it to being, and how we did that?
I think we started, Phil, with the understanding, the acknowledgement that we couldn't innovate on our own. On the continuation of your notion of outside in, we contrasted where we used to start from our innovation perspective. We started with the idea that, yeah, we can probably build all the interesting features, do all the innovation on our own. And that was sometimes based on the reality of where our products were at the time. We started developing this appetite for working with external partners, but it wasn't always easy to do so. So years ago, we started opening up the core insurance systems that we had into a digital insurance platform. And when we got to the point where we felt ready to more easily engage with outside partners, we opened this up as an invitational in Australia that we referred to as Springboard. And our good fortune was to run into MapCite at the time. So that's where we started.
Well, look, let's be fair. I'm not sure that I would have categorized MapCite as an InsurTech specifically, given what they do. Ian, can you give us a little bit of insight as to what MapCite brings to the table, how you engage with us, and frankly, what encouraged you to compete in an InsurTech invitational versus something more broad?
Yeah, sure. I guess the biggest driver for me to participate in the invitational or the springboard was the challenge to meet with DXC. So for a number of years, I mean, we play in the insurance business in some discrete sort of areas, and we recognise, or certainly I recognise that CSC, as it was, DXC now, was a major player in that sector. And it's very difficult to try and penetrate an organisation the size and breadth of DXC, and it proved to be, for me, as a new business sort of guy, very, very difficult to pinpoint the right sort of people. Everybody's interested in spatial, everybody loves mapping, but you never really get to talk to the key decision makers if you just go in sort of without knowing anybody within an organisation. So for me, the invitational opportunity was, and it was around insurance. So it was a bingo moment for us to hopefully get a group of people that own the problem within DXC, and that played out on day one. I mean, I am not a big enter competition sort of guy, and you know, on day one, I remember sitting in a room full of other companies, and then your general manager of insurance stood up, and I thought, wow, that's the man I need to speak to. And it wasn't just him. The whole kit and caboodle was there. Everybody. I mean, you threw everything at it. So from my perspective, it was initially a bit of a, well, let's go. But it was fantastic. I mean, you really did roll out everybody that we needed to get to. And on that first day, I literally had a chance to not to pitch, but to talk to everybody in that room. It was a superb opportunity. That you know, that's I guess encompasses sort of why we entered the competition, and how DXC did exactly what they said they were going to do. You rolled out your big guns.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time for us, and you've highlighted really the interest that we've got. You know, there's so much to do, and there's so much capacity for innovation today as compared to 10, 15 years ago, and it changes so quickly. That companies like MapCite are having the ability to impact industries, not one or two, but multiple at the same time. And I think part of what we learned was that by calling it an InsurTech or FinTech event, we really limited most of the attendees if we were going to go that route. And that when you look at an industry like insurance, who's likely to be the greatest consumer of Internet of Things data for underwriting, for the location services, for how they track and manage information, we really shouldn't be limiting our thinking in that. Faisal, with that theme, how did we begin to embrace different thinkers like MapCite? And how did we, take what was initially a competition, and I know we broadened it to relationships and understanding how these different things could fit into our ecosystem. How did we settle on something that I would expect to our insurance-themed organization? It was like, well, why MapCite? I mean, why do you think that that's the direction we should head?
That was a real eye-opener, Phil. We, in keeping with the context of where we were starting, we always had this notion that we probably need a list of the following 10 features to add into our core insurance systems. Features that we probably could have developed ourselves, or features for which we could have maybe acquired in some other way. But that was based on the limit of our imaginations, even the limit of the imaginations of our customers telling us the kind of things they wanted to do. There was a whole long tail of features and capabilities and richness to bring into the insurance ecosystem that we couldn't even have conceptualized on our own. So opening this up to the collective imagination of creative folks and startups and InsurTechs like MapCite and others was genuinely that eye-opener that I was talking about. And I think it continues to be. The fact is now, Phil, you and I have been broadening our horizons and focusing not exclusively on just InsurTechs, but really creative thinkers and innovators, and saying, okay, this is what we have. This is the core insurance platform. And we are keeping our eyes and ears and hearts open to the idea, well, what is it that we can do next?
I think that's a great theme, and I'm going to take advantage of it, to be honest with you. So, Ian and Adam, you've been through one of our invitationals, and coming out successful is tremendous. But what would you suggest we change? This is a great forum, and we're broadening our horizons, and we're trying to think differently than we have before. What did you think we did right with the first invitational, and what do you think that we could do better as we go forward? And how did you adjust to the nature of this type of a competition?
It's very difficult to be critical about what you can improve or what you did wrong, because it was as I said earlier, it was a bit of a bingo moment. Everybody was in the room. It was, and I'm going to focus on that really. What is so impactful for a company like MapCite is just 10 minutes, 5 minutes with a group of people at senior level that own the problem within, in this instance, with your DIAS product, your digital insurance as a service product. The ability for us to sort of just to conceptualize with not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on how spatial could impact the different sorts of insurance, whether it's general insurance, whether it's travel insurance, and all these different sorts of things, and just to have multiple conversations and to see a conversation grow with 3 or 4 people joining the conversation and actually realizing all the things that we believed in terms of where MapCite fits into insurance. To actually have a group of industry specialists actually sort of sitting there and actually them sort of starting to roll up sort of the conceptual ideas, things that we hadn't thought about. Earlier we discussed things like global bushfire, and right. it's this collective intelligence, I guess, and knowledge of the problems that we can not we can solve, but we can solve as a group of people. How can you criticize that? How can you go better than that? If you wanted to pin me to the floor and say, what could you do better? Well, I suppose it would have been fantastic if we would have had your head of banking there as well. But I'm being greedy, But I've since met your head of banking. I've met your CT of banking in region, and we're starting to have those conversations. And let's hook back on what was so amazing about it was the you've got some great people who listened, and since then they've continued listening, and they've given me the opportunity to sit in front of these people who, guess what, they listen too. So there you go. Long answer to a short question.
No, I think it's a great answer, and really puts forward some thinking, and Adam mentioned it in chat as well. We have to redefine what we consider things, right? I've referred to you as Faisal as a startup. Well, that's not a fair designation. You're almost 8 years old and have been around and doing business on your own before our relationship. But when we start looking at what today is a startup or a newco, what's innovation? Right? Innovation happens in 2 distinct fashions. There's the creation of a new technology or solution. And in some ways, that's the one that's most understood. It also tends to be the one that's scariest to our customer base. And the other one is the innovation around existing technology and using it in new and better fashions. Geospatial data, this kind of information that you're capitalizing on and working, has been around for a while, but you're doing some very unique things with it. And I think that it's a challenge for DXC to think bigger, to think new, and we're learning every day that there's a lot more to cover. And then ultimately, when you're dealing with information such as the spatial information that you're presenting to us, what are some of the scenarios that you're working with us on right now that we're looking to solve on this industry side of the house? What are we looking to kind of integrate with?
Well, initially, we've focused in on a couple of client problems that your customers have, and it's the exciting thing is your clients are multinational. They're global insurance companies. So if we get this right, I'm pretty sure we will get it right, because we've already built out our side and you've built out your side. We've just got to make it work. These solutions should roll out globally over a period of time. But to give you some idea, I touched briefly on a moment ago about sort of conversations in bushfire. But it's not just about sort of identifying which areas of the country are currently burning or whatever. It's predicting where the problems might occur. So it's working with insurance companies to understand better where their risks are, not just for the insurance company, but for the residents of the properties that own the properties. You know, no one wants their house to burn down, you know, I think it's really important not just to look at things like bushfire as, yes, you know, this problem is occurring now, but it's sort of the predictive knowledge that we can actually then roll into doing good and helping insurance companies do good things with data, as opposed to just to raise a policy price. Right. That's I think that's a really important factor. And you know, when I say you understand the problem, you really do understand the problem, and it's about being good and helping people look better. And the ultimate thing, I guess, is reduced churn. But in other areas, we're looking at embargo, which is the ability for insurance companies to, as an event is unraveling, to not restrict the policies that they're accepting from the brokers, but just to review them. So if there's an event going on, like a hurricane in America, if someone wants to take out a new policy or to extend a policy, we need to understand where that policy is, and if it's in an affected area, do we want to write that business? So it's working with very large data sets, with very large geographical regions, to basically improve the quality of the policy that's written, and to ultimately to give back best to the end customer. So in the short period that we've really got to grips with each other, they're the sort of the main areas that we've been working in. But we're also talking the you know, outside of insurance. We're now talking about opportunities in banking, and the great thing about all of this is, when we get it right here, let's roll it out globally. Which for a small company like us, I mean, our tech scales, and it doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what language you talk. Location is location. So it's, you know, we started here in Sydney, and we're talking to you guys there now, and we're doing this.
That's fair. Faisal, you know, you bring up some very interesting points, Ian, and you know, I think part of the challenge comes down to when we start talking our technologies, and so many things to change. Ubiquitous bandwidth, right? Is the availability of a true cloud system, and we've headed down a cloud ecosystem, a digital ecosystem with insurance for a reason. Faisal, how have we moved from our older siloed mainframe big iron type systems to a digital environment? What are we doing to make working with the DXC for MapCite easier? What are we doing to adapt the technology approach to make this kind of relationship, to make this kind of an ecosystem a reality?
Yeah, faced with that reality of needing an ecosystem in the first place, acknowledging that we couldn't do everything on our own gave us a tremendous sense of humility, almost saying that, wow, there is so much out there. I was so impressed, for example, just with the things that Ian was talking about in terms of the real-timeness of the data, or the fine-grainedness of the data, that I could go down to the level of a property or a piece of land or a geographic area and make a decision about that right away. Now, before I could actually harness the value, the utility of such an external feature or service, we needed to do some pretty hard things. The fact is that we were starting from a legacy. And our legacy goes way back, goes back decades. What we were able to do in the past some years was to take that legacy and truly work on what we think of as a digital transformation of our own. Taking those products and making them available in an agile kind of a way, and made available to folks like MapCite. It wasn't always easy, but the results have been astonishing. What we are now able to do is to deliver fine-grained features from insurance rather than a policy administration system. We can open up an API available as a cloud service, and make available to MapCite or others everything from a life insurance policy to get a quote for travel, and then to file a claim. I think commoditizing those services down to simply an invocation of an API delivered over the cloud, that's really where the value is. It wasn't easy, but we'd love to take credit for it.
So you're saying that we've moved down a, obviously digital microservices API based direction, and I think you're very eloquent about the reasons we've done that. So Adam, let me throw this one your way. Now that you're working with us, how successful have we been with that? I mean, how challenging have we made our APIs, our openness to a MapCite to integrate with? We certainly know what we were trying to do. How successful were we in doing so?
I think, as Ian said, and I know this sounds like we're all just saying really good things, and that you've all plied us with saying really good things, but it genuinely is the truth that you when we won the competition way back at way back at the beginning of the year, Ian's had his conversations with the DXC guys in country in Australia, and then suddenly in August time, an email lands in my inbox from Faisal, and I look at the email signature and it says Chief Technologist for DXC for Insurance Innovation, and you think, wow, these guys really have come through on what they said. And Faisal, you'll remember that first conversation we had. It was full and frank. It was really enjoyable conversation. We've kept that flow going. We've had fortnightly calls. Your guys have led us into the to Developer Central, which we're pleased, proud to be among the first outsiders to come into that, and we're working with your teams to build demonstrators for your insurance conference, and everyone is engaging. And Ian will know, over the last 8 years of our roller coaster ride journey, we have done many of these SME, small business competitions with the big systems integrators, and those kind of events have tended to be ticking the box exercises. Oh, look, we've run an event for small business, aren't we good? Let's pat ourselves on the back. The difference with you guys is we didn't hear much from you for 2 or 3 months because of the reasons that you'd said, Faisal. You had stuff to do. And in that first conversation that we had, we said it was all about time. If we'd have engaged a couple of months sooner, we wouldn't be moving at the pace we're moving at now. And so it has, your guys have been really welcoming to us, and hopefully they're finding us the same. And we're really excited about what we can build together.
Let's talk about that for a second, Adam. The interesting thing about what we're building together is, at least in my mind, a little bit different from what we set out to do. We had a life insurance product, and it wasn't always apparent what spatial components might come into life. So do you remember what the context there was? I think it was a real eye-opener.
Yeah, well, I think it was sort of understanding some of your language and some of your challenges, but I think it is around that whole digital life, that whole ensure wrap around service. And we talked you through some of the use cases we've been working on in insurance, and it then became clear that actually engaging with end customers, giving them the right message at the right time to tell them what might be coming their way, that is spatial. There is something coming, be it a bushfire, be it a hurricane, be it a storm surge. And let's just let you know that. I know the news outlets do that, but actually to hear that from your insurer who's actually trying to help you and we're seeing that in the UK as well. It's a big sea change of actually let's make, Ian touched on it earlier, let's make the insurer somebody other than you, just somebody you have to pay money to once a year that you really begrudge. Yeah. That's the big difference. And I think that the granularity is, you live in a zip code world, we live in a postcode world. And actually what we're trying to do is move to a world without postcodes and a world without zip codes, where we're going down to that really granular level of understanding risk. And we, as a small business, we can't do that with global players. We have a couple of large global players as clients, but as Ian mentioned before, they're in niche areas. You guys give us that ability to have that reach and to take our innovation into a broader market. I think, Ian, 7 or 8 years ago when you started the business, one of the many strap lines you come up with when you're starting a new business is that really we wanted to be the innovators, not the integrators. So actually that's where the partnership works for us.
Yeah, so I have one question as we come up against the top of the hour and the end of our session today. Ian and Adam, we're looking to find other map sites, and not the same solution, of course, but other like partners. What would you suggest to potential participants in our current DXC Invitational? What should they watch out for? How should they engage with us? Because I know that we're looking to change the game, change the industry. And I know you are as well. So what should our prospective invitees look for? And what should they do?
Well, I would encourage anyone that's thinking about applying for an invitational session to think very carefully about what they want the guys that are receiving their application to think, because there's only a finite number of people that can turn up to these events. I mean, it's not all and sundry. You have to be selected. And I think if I had a specific reason why I wanted to turn up at this event, and that was to meet some people. And so I sat down and I thought and worked closely on the message that I put in the invitation to respond. And I would just encourage people to think very carefully about their message. We spend an appalling amount of time making sure we get our message right, because you only have one chance, and that's it. Once that chance is gone, it's gone. It doesn't pop up again. So I think if anyone's watching this thinking, I want to apply for this, just think carefully about your message. Make sure it's right.
Adam, anything that you would add to that?
No, I think, well, it was, I think Ian's hit the nail on the head, but sometimes I've got another event, different group to do on Monday, and sometimes it's about keeping that message, as Ian has said there, very true, is be true to your message, be true to who you are, and sometimes the most simple things are what resonate because they solve an immediate problem. If you try and overcomplicate, yeah, it's great, you've got great technology, but actually we're years away from that complicated solution. We need something that will solve the problem now. And I think, Ian, what you pitched at the Invitational, it resonated in the room. And so you got to speak to people, but also you were showing them something that was resonating.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that I sat through the first session in Sydney and realised what I was preparing to present to the guys wasn't necessarily what they wanted to hear. So I went out at lunchtime and I completely, albeit with the message that we put in to get into the meeting room was good enough to get into the meeting room. When I was there, I listened and it wasn't necessarily what the guys wanted to hear. So I completely restructured our entire presentation at lunchtime. And ultimately that was what they wanted to hear. And ironically, we're now working with DXC on the original plan, but the plan that we pitched is also in play as well. So it's just you use your ears. You got two of them and one gob. Use them in that ratio.
Faisal, any closing words from you, sir?
So I see so much lesson opportunity here for us at DXC itself. It's if anybody, the insiders from DXC are listening, the message I want to get across is that there is an opportunity to learn here. We have such an easy trap that we could fall into saying that I already know how to do one of these things. I know how to draw a map. I know how to do spatial analytics. But the fact is, we don't do it with the simplicity perhaps that MapCite does. We have, as technologists, we have the arrogance to say that we can solve complex problems. But the smarter thing to do is to find the people who can do it better. And that takes a bit of humility. It takes a bit of openness. And so what I'm really excited about is the cultural change happening at places like DXC to actually open up and treat the opportunities in the same way that we do with the in the open source communities. And that's another area that I think we have an opportunity to follow. Phil, could you talk more about the Invitational and what the next few milestones we're about to reach are?
Absolutely. So, we are rapidly collecting as many applications as possible. We'll make decisions on who's going to participate in the America's DXC Invitational. I did post the link to the message here, and anyone can find myself or Faisal on LinkedIn, and you'll find many references to the invitation itself if you have interest. What I'd highlight, and I think you've heard a lot of it, is that innovation means a lot to a lot of different people. And we are so much more open in our thinking than people may expect from a DXC. And we know we're not the smartest people around. And we're looking for things that fill gaps that we don't have filled. We're looking for gaps closed that we don't realize we have. And if there's a better mousetrap, we're open to hearing about that. And your size and your scale is less important than your solution and how you solve it. And so I would encourage everyone to find us and engage. We want the relationships. We want our partners. And thank you very much, Ian and Adam, for participating in Springboard, but just as importantly, winning it and then helping us to host this event today.
No problem. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much. It's been great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Looking forward to talking next time.
Take care, guys.
Thanks. Cheers.
Do we all go?
Still says live.